Hey everybody, it's Dave Dugdale, learningdslrvideo.com, and today we have James Drake from James Drake Films. And he's gonna, one of the things I want to try to do here is a lot of people came with questions with me like, oh, you got that brand new computer, it's awesome, but how does it work with, you know, raw footage? And James has a Red, and he's shot some awesome video recently. Actually, you've been shooting awesome video all the time, but
the first time I ever shot. I'm just kidding.
But he's got a series been doing. We'll be showing some clips of, which has been awesome, and the quality is just incredible. So I said, James, why don't you come up? Let's put some onto my, my working drive and just see how well it does. I'm kind of guessing that it might not do great because I don't have a RAID array yet. I'd like to do that at some point, but let's see how it works. All right, so what we've done is we've transferred the stuff from his G drive to my media drive. We tried it on the G drive just for kicks, and it was sputtering and I didn't like it. So we're creating a brand new project file. We'll say OK here, and then what do we want to choose for here? Actually, there's a Red. There's a Red R3D. What do we want to pick for this one?
Well, you obviously want to match it kind of to what you shot, and in this case it would be 5K. 24:1 23976.
That one? Okay. And I'm on CS6, which I believe before when I was CS5 and we did that previous video, I had to like do some sort of plug-in.
Right.
I think we can actually interface with the files directly in CS6, right?
Yep. There's another update that CS6 has that improves stability and whatnot from Adobe Labs, but out of the box it will work with the Red files.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and import those clips. Do you want to drive at this point?
Sure.
Okay.
When I bring footage into Premiere, I always use the media browser down here. The tendency many times is to use import, and that works for like pictures and things like that. But when you have cameras like the Red or even AVC HD cameras that have clip spanning, meaning that clips go bigger than 4 gigabytes and then the camera has to like parse the file. Okay. You want to use media browser because it writes metadata files that media browser can read, whereas import cannot. So you'll have duplicate clips if you import via the import menu.
I think I did that last time when we did that Union Station shoot.
Totally. So here our clips are.
Actually, before you hit import, you were just kind of mousing. I'm just kind of curious. Does that speed seem pretty normal for what you were? Okay.
Yeah. The preview speed on the thumbnail seems normal.
Now we're not gonna like totally rebuild his file here. We're just gonna pick like some of his best clips and throw them on the timeline and just see how my computer reacts to these clips.
The one thing you do want to set before you start going, depending on the speed of your computer, is both on your source monitor and on your preview monitor. You want to set your resolution in accordance to what you think your computer can do.
Okay. Now,
I don't know how you want to test it because this thing's probably a rocket ship and can do pretty well.
I don't know. Whatever you like.
But
you're driving.
On my 27-inch iMac, not the newest one, but the second to newest one, the 2011, whatever, I can do about 8th res pretty consistently, which isn't great, but it's 8th res of 5K. Okay. So it's not too bad. So anyway, you select a resolution that makes sense, and we'll try it at half, I guess, to see if it'll work. Just see if this plays back here.
So far, it doesn't seem to be dropping frames.
Yeah, it seems to be doing really, really well at half. And see like.
And also, just so you guys know, I'm running a screen capture program called Camtasia in the background, which might be hindering it. I don't know, but.
No, I mean that's super smooth.
I'm not seeing any drop frames yet. So he's going to full. In fact, I think you've gone to full. Oh, it's choking.
Quite there. But it seems like half you can almost get away with it. Okay. At least in the preview.
In the preview, okay. And one thing to point out, and I don't know if I recorded this before or not because I've been kind of cutting on and off, but when James came over, I was showing him some of my GoPro footage I shot. and I was telling him how even my system was kind of choking on some of the clips I was doing, and then we were talking about, and he was explaining how the GoPro footage is actually harder on the computer than the Red, which really surprised me.
Yeah, the thing that's weird about that is I think the GoPro uses an AVC HD implementation, and the bit rate just makes it weird, because you go to ProTune and it's on the Black Edition GoPro 3 at 35 megabit per second, and then all of a sudden your computer's like, oh, I can't decompile this information fast enough. So
and for the most part, it was playing back perfectly when I tried to reverse the motion, because somebody was coming up out of the pool and going back up to the diving board, doing a flip, and like James was pointing out that I guess the keyframes or something, trying to do it backwards, it just chokes on it. It just doesn't know what it's doing. All right, so now James has pulled up some of his clips, and I've got kind of my resources going on here on the left side of the screen, and we're just gonna hit playback on half this time, just and see what happens with the hard drives. And if you can follow my mouse, this is my export drive, which is going to do nothing in this case. This is my C drive. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, which is actually, it's recording. We're doing screen capture, so that's why it's probably got so much activity. S drive, you can see, is already done, starting to do stuff, which I don't know why, and then here's my media drive, where the actual files are going to be pulled from. So another thing to watch out for is we're going to watch the CPU over here, and we're going to watch the GPU load right here to see what happens. And this is, again, is at half. So I'll hit the space bar and watch what happens. And I don't know if you guys can see this in terms of, oh, that was interesting. What? Was it scale to fit type of thing?
Yeah, I just realized that was the 2K file that we put in the 5K timeline.
So right now, I mean, there's a lot of slow motion stuff, which is great, because I think it'll be easier to find a drop frame just by looking at it. And on the screen capture program, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it looks totally fluid. Yeah. And GPU load, like at 7%. The CPU, however, is working pretty hard. It's bouncing around from 60 to 65. And we can see that our M drive is sometimes, I guess, totally saturated, or whatever the correct word is, but it's pulling as much as it can. And I'm thinking is going to be one of our weakest links, because again, I don't have a RAID. So that was pretty much it. So it was like a 52 seconds. So now we're going to try again, but now I'm going to go to full, and I have a feeling the CPU is going to choke on this. I think that's what we're going to see right here. And just for a baseline,
also notice the RAM is shot up as well.
Yeah, we're at, oh, did it shoot up from last time?
I think so.
From half to full. CPU, which is really interesting, is we're recording this with Camtasia, and it's not even using any CPU, which is kind of surprising. But now that we're gonna go ahead and hit play and see what happens. All right, I can see it moving, but it's like totally choking here.
CPU is toast.
Yeah, CPU is toast at this point, and so I think it's a CPU issue. It's definitely not a GPU issue, because we don't have any effects on the clip. Yeah. There's nothing going on.
Right.
So we'll just stop that right now, because the weakest point right here is definitely the CPU. And I've overclocked this at this point. It's at 4.3. I could try going to 4.7 or 5 gigahertz, but every time I try to do it, it crashes. So I'm not an overclocking genius by any stretch of imagination. So what I like to try next is actually put some effects on the clip. We're going to go back to half res, because that seemed to work pretty well. And then let's see what happens to the GPU.
Yeah, I'm not going to keyframe it.
Oh, and actually, while we're here, we'll do that first. So he's just adding an S-curve, but I watched the tutorial, I totally forgot. How do you get to the Red Cine X kind of metadata that you can change, like the ISO, for instance, and stuff like that?
Sure. The easiest way is to hit reveal in project on here. I actually set these up as shortcuts on my keyboard, because I do it quite often, but you reveal in project on the clip, or you just find it in the browser, and then you go to source settings. Oh, geez. And this basically gives you the same controls as Red Cine X to an extent.
So any changes you make here will get reflected back on to the monitor, right?
Correct. Now what's interesting, I just noticed here, is we're on red color 2 and red gamma 2. And because we haven't updated to the newest Adobe Labs, I actually shot this red color 3, red gamma 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you do have to update. It'll work natively, but you have to update to take advantage of the latest color science. But you can do the same thing in here. However, this will not test the GPU as much.
Oh, because it's not CUDA accelerated?
Well, it's just metadata. All this is doing...
Interesting.
You can affect this stuff, as long as it's not a post-debayer effect, which you can't do in this thing here. It's not going to affect the file. I could do this, and it wouldn't matter.
Oh, okay.
And now I can't undo that.
Can you talk really quickly on this term that I keep hearing people talk about in podcasts, like this debayer type thing? What does debayer mean?
Sure. Well, the basic understanding that I have of debayering is that because you're shooting on a Bayer pattern,
What's a Bayer pattern?
It's an array of how CMOS sensors work.
Oh, okay.
And so you have red, green, green, red, green, blue. You have twice as much green as you have blue and red.
Okay.
And so it has to take that color information and from the Bayer pattern, debayer it to create this image.
Okay.
And so basically, it's a mathematical type of calculation to get your color information.
Okay.
Which is why some people are like, oh, well, it's not really 5K, it's really only like 4K, or it's not really 4K, it's only 3.2K, because there's not a red, green, blue pixel for every single pixel.
Okay.
But it saves on information. But that does mean, with the way that the red works, that your computer has to do that process. It's not done in camera, whereas like something like C300, or, you know, any camera that has a Bayer pattern, F3 or whatever, has to do the debayering in camera. The red puts that to post, which is why you can change the ISO, which is why you can do all these changes without inhibiting like any quality whatsoever.
Wow, that's
it's
amazing.
Just done on the computer instead of in the camera.
That still blows my mind that you can change the ISO later.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, so James added a whole bunch of effects. Let's see, we got RGB curves, Luma curves. He flipped it, Gaussian blur. I don't even know what's that, proc amp? What is that?
The processor.
Something, and Luma corrector. So go ahead and hit play and let's watch the GPU. CPU should be doing about the same. And CPU is actually cranking, actually. And now it's coming down a little bit. GPU, I thought it peaked out at like 22, so it wasn't that much. But the GPU like freaked out there at the beginning, so it was almost like one of those effects. Because I noticed if you put effect on there that is not GPU accelerated, it kind of drags the whole thing down. But this time, I didn't watch the GPU that time. It probably prefetched some of that stuff in RAM, I guess. But go again. Yeah, now the GPU is not doing anything. It's like it's put stuff to RAM memory or something, and it's not dropping any frames. At least I don't. It's hard to see because it's so blurry.
Well, before the GPU is at 7%, and it's up to a grand total of 22 now.
So, yeah. And what's interesting, too, is the memory used on the RAMs. Because I bought 4 gig. Everybody's telling me, don't get 2 gig, get 4 gig. And yeah, I don't think I've ever gone past 2 gig. Because, yeah, it's at 1.2 right now. So that's kind of interesting. Let's say if you wanted to watch it at full, what would you have to do? You'd have to just pre-render it.
Well, it doesn't really make sense to watch it at full.
Why is that?
Because it's 5K in a space of like 640 by 360.
That's totally true. Thank you for saying that.
Even half, I mean, if you divide 5120 by 2160 divided by 2 is still 2560 by 1080-ish. So you're still watching at 1080 at half res.
So let's say if I had a separate second monitor and I wanted to watch that at, let's say, 1080. If I put it at half, I'm actually watching it pretty much at full quality is what you're saying. Interesting.
The other thing is, if you wanted to have full debayering, because there is some weirdness sometimes if you have it on half debayer, just because it's working to speed it up versus go full quality. the best way is to get a Red Rocket card, which takes all of the CPU that you saw skyrocket and puts it onto that Red Rocket card, and then you have your CPU and GPU open for everything else.
Okay.
And so your Red Rocket is designed specifically for that full debayering, and it also has the ability to send out an SDI signal into a professional monitor. So if you wanted to monitor in 1080 full quality, full debayer, go right out to it, and then you're monitoring real time without having the penalty on your system.
And also what we're kind of noticing here too is, you know, a lot of people told me to get a 4 gig graphics card, and yet we put some heavy effects on raw footage, and right now it says memory used, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but it says only using 1.2 gig out of 4. And all the time that I've ever used it, I don't think I've ever seen it go above 2. So if you're looking at a 680 graphics card, you might be fine going with the 2 gig version. So right now what we're doing is we're in DaVinci Resolve. We've got a whole bunch of color correction goodness on this one particular clip, what we're looping. And we're just trying to figure out what the GPU is doing on this GTX 680. And we're hitting, I don't know, peaks at around 35%. So a little bit higher, 42. I saw 42. A little bit higher than what we were doing in Premiere. But again, memory used, if I'm correct on this one, we're not using that much. We're using less than a gig. So maybe if you guys are shopping for cards, you might not need the 4 gig. I don't know where that comes into play. All right, so what I want to talk about, you know, we're done doing the tests, and I think we came up with some pretty conclusions that maybe this particular graphics card may be overkill. I don't know. And I know, you know, I just started using it, so maybe in the future, when I do get a different camera, maybe I get a Blackmagic camera. Maybe it does use more than the Red. Who knows? Like you were talking about, the Red does some things embedded into the file that are pretty ingenious that makes it easier for post. So who knows? Anyway, so what I want to talk about with James here is, you know, I love his series he's doing on these videos he does on Vimeo. I think they're awesome. The quality, there's one I'll put a link to. There's this girl in the field, and there's some shots that he's shooting right into the sun, and he's got the rim lighting on her face, and he's holding the detail on her skin, and everything else, it's gorgeous. And obviously you're shooting with a much better camera, but your expertise to pull off those shots, because I'm always having problems shooting straight into the sun and getting those kind of looks. But what I want to talk to you about is passion projects, because I like doing them. Free projects for somebody or whatever it is to better your craft. I mean, why do you do passion projects?
Sure. Well, I mean, you kind of get bogged down on the day-to-day sometimes. What you get paid for is not always what you want to do, and that's just true of life. And so for me, I really like working with people on something that they're mutually interested in, and these projects have really been a way to bring together really a new group of friends that I haven't got to work with before. And obviously we live in an immensely beautiful state, so we get to utilize the playground out there, the mountains and the fields and everything like that. So it's kind of a combination of things. And obviously there's shots that I'll probably end up using my reel, because they're just magic moments that happen when you're out there. And so I think between getting stuff for your reel and hanging out with new people and just working together, for me it's almost like hanging out with my friends. You know?
Yeah, definitely. One other video you should definitely check out of James, which I don't think was a passion project, but you did this one. There's this one, I can remember it really well. This guy is casting off the boat, and as the lure or whatever is coming towards the camera, you're like either tracking it or something, but it's just freaking insane how you did that. I don't know, but I'll definitely put a link to that. That wasn't a passion project, right?
Nope. That was for, can I say the name of it? Is that allowed?
Go ahead.
I don't know what I don't know who's restricting me. It's for Pepper Custom Baits. It was an excellent project. I just shot it. I didn't do the post side. Seth Schaefer was the post guy on that, but really turned out well. We got to shoot in Lake Powell, again, another epically beautiful place. So just a lot of magic happened on that shoot, and
Lake Powell.
Yeah.
Which is south there, just amazing place. I've been there. Yeah, gone water skiing there. It's incredible. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys found this useful. I know I did. James, thank you very much, because I learn a ton every time I go with James. James is, I am not worthy. This guy is very smart. So, all right, that's pretty much it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.